Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin James from Scalp MicroPigmentation Australia and welcome to another 5-minute fast facts on Scalp MicroPigmentation, the Pro Artist series, where we're interviewing some amazing scalp micropigmentation artists from around the world and getting their tips and tricks on how you can get the most out of your scalp micropigmentation transformation. So today we're chatting with a legend of the industry. He is one of the most well-recognised faces across the scalp micropigmentation world. He has one of the most moving and beautiful stories about his own personal journey in scalp micropigmentation, which brought me to tears the first time that we spoke about it, or he spoke about it with me. He's super passionate about the need for high quality training and pigments and inks within our industry. He teamed up with another amazing SMP god, Paul Clark, and created the well-known UK-based company in Birmingham called Brownwood Clinic. He is an SMP provider and a training centre there at Brownwood Clinic. You all know who he is. It's SMP royalty, Mr. Simon Lane. Welcome, Simon. How are you?
Hi, Caitlin. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Nice to join you, and thanks for having me on your show. Thank you.
Excellent, cool. All right, so Simon, you could go on to mention all the awards that you've won over the years with Brandwood, the clinic itself, you personally, and Paul Clark. There's lots to mention there. This segment's probably going to go over 5 minutes, just giving a bit of a word of warning to anyone listening or watching this little clip. But let's just start with, you're so well recognised and your results are amazing, and you have won lots of awards at Brandwood. Tell us, what is your one most sort of prized possession, or what's the most meaningful award that you've won so far?
I think probably the one I received last year, the outstanding contribution to our industry. That was very special. Paul was the recipient of it the year before, so to follow Paul a year later, to be recognised by your peers that you've done well within this industry, and you're trying to boundary right. I think for that to be recognised was special. So I'd say the outstanding contribution to the industry award is my favourite award to date.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, well, let's perhaps start for anyone listening who doesn't perhaps know your background story. Would you like to go back and tell your experience as a child in regards to your accident?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my story with hair loss goes back probably a lot longer than many other people. I was 2 years old when I had a childhood accident. I received a 3rd-degree burn to my scalp. I knocked a boiling hot kettle or teapot over, and it went over my head. Fortunately, it didn't go that onto my face, but it gave me about 70% burn on top of my head. From there, I was rushed into hospital, spent 3 days in intensive care where shock set in, cutting it short, really. The bandages, once I come out of intensive care, I had bandages on my head for nearly 2 years because the skin hadn't grown. It was just red, raw flesh. After 2 years, the bandages finally came off. A district nurse used to come in and see me every day and help my mum change the bandages. So when I was 4 years old, my mum wanted me to start primary school here in the UK, and just to fit in, really. And I had no hair on top. They said there was probably a good 70% on top of my head where I've got no hair now. So she looked into me wearing a hairpiece, which, I'm showing my age here now. This is back in 1975. And hairpieces, especially for children, wasn't really available. So a lot of research went into that. She finally did get me a hairpiece. Obviously, they're not as good as the systems that we see around today, very thick-based. I had to disguise the hairpiece with my own existing hair. And then I started primary school. So from 4 years old till I was 22, I wore a hairpiece. So going through childhood and into my early manhood days, it was all being very careful with my day-to-day life. And I think I started to look around about 22 that, you know, I knew I was different. I had to be careful on things, but I then looked into getting a hair transplant. I went and seen a hair transplant surgeon, Dr. Bazoon Fajo, one of the leading UK surgeons here. And he said the area was too big. So what was recommended back in 1993 was to have a scalp reduction. So I had that done where they kind of bring the skin in together and try to reduce the size of the burn. That was done, very painful. Had about 12, 15 stitches, well, staples in the top of my head. It did reduce the burn, the size of the burn. And then I think a year later, I went to see Dr. Fajo, and he wanted me to be the first person, because no one had ever had this done, Caitlin. So I was the first person in the world to have a hair transplant, to his knowledge, on burnt skin. He was very honest, very open with me. He said that, you know, I was a guinea pig for this procedure, and would it work? Probably would only give me about 60 to 70% hair if we were lucky, but I wanted to go for it. Over a 2-year period, I had 4 hair transplants. And he was right. He did give me about 70% of my hair, but it still wasn't thick enough. The good news was that I could start to then, I got rid of the hair pieces and I could start to just cut my hair short. But I then started using hair concealer, hair fibres. It was called Main Spray. And then I started using that then, and that was a journey, a 15-year journey, taking me up to 2010. I started to lose my own hair. What I'd got left, the transplants as well. Some of that was then not taken as well. So really, by 2010, it was a case of I had to do something. I couldn't keep using the hair concealer because I just had no hair left, and I couldn't shave all my hair off, which is what I really wanted to do by then, because I was full of scars. I've got 4 scars on the back of my head. I got a big scar where this little one is here, run all the way down my head, where I'd had the scalp reduction. So I was fortunate to find out about scalp micropigmentation in the very early years, 2010, and that was where my journey into this industry began. Yeah,
brilliant. That's such a big background, and I'm sure someone out there would have to relate, going through something similar to yourself. So how did you actually come across scalp micropigmentation? Back in 2010, it wasn't all that well known. So where did you go to find out about it? And then what happened when you called for consultation?
Well, I was fortunate because where I was going to get my hair cut was actually at a shop that was helping men out with hair pieces. I think I was the only person in that shop who didn't have a hair piece on, but I knew the guy really well, and he got a huge passion for all hair-related products, and he just was at the forefront of what was going on in the hair industry. I'd been going there for 15 years to get my hair cut. And I said to him the one day, his name was Pete, and I just said, "Look, Pete," I said, it must be hard for you to keep cutting my hair. I said, because I've virtually got no hair. I was kind of sweeping it over and doing all sorts of things, spraying more. And he was very honest, and he said, "Look, Simon, I'm being honest with you." Yeah, he said, "It's getting harder to cut your hair." So at that point, I thought, well, what can I do? I say I couldn't go bald because of all the scars on my head. So I actually thought the only option I got was going back to wearing a hairpiece. But all what I wanted with that hairpiece was, if that was what I just wanted to have, a short cropped hairstyle. I was done, trying to do all the hairstyles. I'd done all of that. I was 38 years old then. So I just wanted a short cropped hairstyle. So I did discuss about perhaps wearing a hairpiece again. And it was Pete who said, "Well, look, Simon," he says, have you thought about having your head tattooed?" And I don't know, these were the actual words he said. And, I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I thought he meant, "Do you want to, put a snake on my head or something and just get it tattooed over?" And he says, "No," he says, there's a new industry. It's just come out. He said, it's only been out, to my knowledge, about a year, 2 years. He said it's called micro hair tattooing. Short MHT, micro hair tattooing. He says, and there's a place in Birmingham, they've just started doing it. He said, I went down there a couple of weeks ago. He says, it looks fantastic. He said, you should go and have a look at that. He says, go and see the guy. He says, I think, be interested to see you. So he gave me the details, and that was the journey into looking into hair tattooing in 2010.
Yeah, brilliant. And so, and Paul was the practitioner that you met with there?
Yeah, I went and had a consultation, and I wanted it done so quickly, and they were fairly busy. It was his hair clinic. The guy's name was Ian Watson. And so they just started out, and there was just him who was doing the consultations, and his sister-in-law, Rambia, and she was doing the treatments. And he said to me, look, we want to get you in, but Rambia's doing all the treatments. So, she got a bit of a backlog. So it took me till about October. I think I went for my consultation in the May of 2010. And I think I had to wait till October. So October the 5th, 2010, you never forget life-changing things that happen to you for the better as well. And I walked into the door at his hair clinic to have my treatment done, and I was greeted with by Ian, and next to him was this tall 6'3" guy in a fisherman's hat, beard, a slight small beard, and introduced himself as Paul Clark. And he said, this is Paul's second day here, we're going to be training him up as an apprentice. So quick introduction to with Paul. He went off to carry on doing his training, and Rambia done my first 2 sessions. So yeah, but that was the first time I met Paul. Paul doesn't actually remember it, but obviously, it was such a big day for me. I remember everything about that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. And so what was it like? So obviously you're very excited about going in for your first session. Did they have some reservations about treating over transplanting or scar tissue? Was she fairly confident in the treatment, or was it, again, you felt like you were maybe in this sort of unknown category? Did they have enough experience at that stage to tell you what it was going to turn out like?
I don't think they knew really what it was going to turn out, because they've been doing it about a year, 2 years maybe. Photos on their gallery at the time, there was no hair transplants, no scars, so they never said that to me. And during the conversation, he gave me all the reassurances that I needed. And he did say, look, it's a big job. It's probably going to take about 5 sessions. It's going to cost you £3,500. And when people divert away from that, talk about costs of today, that was what I was, 10 years ago. It cost me £3,500 to have mine done. But yeah, he was very positive, gave me all the reassurance and the confidence that I needed to go in there. And I didn't have any reservations to think that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. And what was it like heading home from your first session? Do you remember?
Oh, God, yeah. Shaving my hair off, the existing hair I've got, that was such a big deal for me on that day. Never had my hair shaved. I think the first session took about 5 hours. Rambia worked.
Sorry, did you shave your own hair, or did they clip it for you?
No, I didn't shave my own hair. Ian shaved it all off for me, put the cloak on me, and he shaved my hair off. I didn't want to look in the mirror, because obviously I knew I could see there were scars, and I didn't really want to see how I looked, which we know a lot of clients feel like that still to this day. So I think my first session took about 5 hours. They worked virtually the whole of my head. And the technique was done a lot different then as well, Caitlin. It was about getting as much density as you could in on the first session. So by that first session, I'd probably got about 80% of my MHT on my head. And yeah, the feeling can't be described. It's kind of all coming back to me now, because I walked out of that clinic into the public for the first time without anything on my head, like any hair pieces, hair concealer. And the crazy thing happened was that it started to rain, and I got home and I walked straight out into the back garden. My wife, Helen, she greeted me at the door, and she was genuinely impressed. She said, wow, this looks fantastic. And I think she could see from my face how pleased I was with it and what a liberating moment that was for me. But it started raining. I walked straight out through the back door, took my top off in the garden, and I just held my hands up to the heavens, to my head, like that, and I let it rain on me. And that may sound weird to people who are listening, but I've never had rain on my head. I could never have rain, because when you wear hair concealer, it all runs down your head. So I was always trying to protect my head. You know, I couldn't go swimming, things like that. So it was the first time I'd ever had that moment, that freedom. And yeah, well, you know, what a beautiful feeling it was as well.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So how many sessions did it end up taking you?
It took an initial, I think it was 4 sessions that they finally got the you know, the coverage in, because of all my scars on the back. So there was a lot of work to do around the back of my head as well. And this was 4 sessions, so I think probably over an 8 to 10 week period. And I was kind of good to go really then, and content and happy, you know, with what they'd done. I did have a very defined hairline at the time. I mean, it was the shape a little bit higher than what I've got now, which I'm glad that I did at the time without realising why. But my hairline was a little bit higher, but the finish was all defined. It was a straight line. Obviously, you know, the soft natural hairlines hadn't been produced, and my side profiles were kind of super sharp. But it is what it is. It was, you know, it was great at the time. Innovations move forward, and you know, we've got better over time. But for then, it still looked good. As we move forward, we realise, you know, that them hairlines probably didn't suit certain skin tones and certain age groups. But yeah, you know, 2010, having them initial 4 treatments, yeah, totally liberating.
Yeah. And what were you doing for work at the time? How was it affecting you and a job that you may have had?
Well, I'd had quite a few jobs. I was I was kind of in this pattern where I'd stick to a job for about 5 years, get bored and move on. But I was in sales, and the job I was doing at that time was working for a big company over here called, well, it was for McVitie's. They supply all biscuits, McVitie's biscuits and crisps. And I was a sales rep, but I used to drive a lorry, and that kind of helped because kind of was in with. So that I didn't really have a problem, and advising one because if I didn't want to cap on, I had the on. And nobody ever said anything to me, you know, while I was at McVitie's. I think a few comments like, "Well, you know, you never stop wearing that hat." You know, I had a few comments like that, but just general banter.
Yeah. And so, how did you then transition into the world of scalp micropigmentation? How did that all come about?
The transition came about, I think it was my last visit to his hair clinic, and I was talking to Ian, and he was telling me about how he felt this industry was going to move forward. It was going to explode, you know, on the hair loss industry. Certainly the UK and Europe are the innovators of this industry, and they wanted to expand, and that's why Paul was there. And he said to me, "Look, you know, we want to." At the time, Birmingham was going to be a super clinic. There was no plans at that time to open around the world. It was a converted house. It got 6 bedrooms, which they kind of converted into clinics. So the idea was sort of about 5 practitioners. Everyone was going to fly in from all around the world, which they were doing, you know, from America and Australia, or you know, all parts of Europe. They were still doing that at that time. And he said, "We want to expand, and we want you to join the team." At the time, I thought it was to be helping grow the company sales-wise, you know, marketing, because that was my background. And he said to me, "No, so I want you to be a practitioner." My first reaction was, "What? You mean what? I can't do that." He says, "Of course you can." He says, "Look, we'll train you." and it gave me a real decision, because I enjoyed my job as a sales rep, but I wasn't deadly passionate about it. But obviously the hair loss, I could relate to it because of my own journey. So I said to him, look, can I think about it? I said, I've got a mortgage, family to provide for, and there was no pressure. And he said, well, why don't you just come in on a Saturday? And if you like it, he says, let's give it a go. So that's what I did. I think I've done about 3-4 Saturdays on the bounce. And I knew really after the first one, Caitlin, I thought, wow, this is the job for me. So after about the 4th Saturday, I said, look, I want to do this. No problem, he says, but let's pack your job in. So I worked a month's notice. And I finally started just at the beginning of 2011. And at that time, Paul was there. There was another guy called Johnny Tang. There was a guy who we all know in this industry called Damon Ashcroft. He'd started a month before me. And Matt Ilulu had just been over as well. So there was a core of us there who were starting this industry off.
Yeah, brilliant. And some of those names, they're around today and have really made an amazing name for themselves and create beautiful results. So that's a nice meeting point where you all started together.
Yeah. I mean, we all got on well, and we all knew we were in an industry that looked exciting, and we felt there was great things that were going to come from it. And I think to be there at that time, at the forefront, I was, when clients asked me, I just said, look, I was right place at the right time.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the beginnings of Brownwood Clinic then.
Well, Bramble Clinic started in 2015. Probably just have to go a little bit back before. Myself and Paul, we'd been at his hair clinic then for 3 years. We felt that it was time just to move forward. We'd always worked together, and we wanted to do that. We just had some different ideas to how Ian and Rambia wanted to run his hair clinic, and it's fine. It was their company, and they wanted to do it their way. It just wasn't the direction that myself and Paul felt we wanted to go. So we had to go on a bit of gardening leave through contracts that we signed at his hair clinic, and we wasn't allowed to come into the industry for 6 months. So we finished work in December of 2014. I went on a long gardening leave, and after that, we started to look at Bramble Clinic, and Bramble Clinic opened its doors, I think, in the October of 2015.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's grown from there. So at Bramble Clinic now, you've got yourself and Paul and Agatha there as the main practitioners. Tell us about the other exciting things that have happened this year as well with your other locations.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been very fortunate that at the start of the year before this coronavirus breakout, we were lucky to open 2 more clinics in the UK. We opened one in Bristol with our friend Damon Ashcroft, because we worked with him at his hair clinic, and we knew that his work was, in our opinion, just up there with the best. Fantastic. Got the over 10 years experience as well, and we'd always kept in touch with Damon anyway. We'd gone on a separate journey, but he was always a close friend to us, so it was great to work back with Damon in Bristol. Shortly after that, I think 3 weeks after that, we opened in Manchester, again with another practitioner who we work with at his hair clinic, Danny Wynn. Danny, again, I'd done Danny's first treatments in 2012. He got a kind of hair loss story, which is very moving. And he was a postman at the time, but then he became a practitioner, again, keeping close with Danny all these years. So it was great to open that. And the year before that, obviously, we'd opened South Africa as well in Cape Town.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's just quickly go back. I forgot to ask you a question about Bramble Clinic. Do you want to just quickly explain the meaning of where the name comes from?
Well, the name Bramble Clinic came about, it was through the childhood accident I had. because where my mum and dad live is on a road called Brandwood Road. And when we was trying to get names for the clinic, we was just trying to think of something a little bit different. And I'd love to take the credit for it, but I can't. It was David Andrews with his marketing brain that come up with the idea of Brownwood. And he said, really, well, look, why don't we call it Brownwood? That's the name of the road where this accident happened. If this accident hadn't happened, we wouldn't be all here. All roads kind of lead to Brownwood, pardon the pun. So that was where it came from. It was the name of the road where I had the childhood accident.
Yeah, that's really nice. It's very meaningful. All right, so let's have a chat about the Alivio pigment. So where was the idea? Who decided they wanted to make a pigment? Was it yourself or Paul? Or David?
I think it was all three of us, really. We didn't want to use the pigments that we'd used previously for our own reasons. Paul, for those who don't know him, is a very strong, I know you do, Caitlin, so Paul is a very passionate and strong vegan. So we wanted to create a pigment that was different to the one we'd been using, but we had to have that in mind, that it had to be a vegan pigment. And that was fine with everything, with myself and David as well, because it ticked all the boxes, because it was doing the right thing, it was body friendly. So it was a case of researching different pigments, trialing different pigments that were out there, kind of getting an idea of how they looked. And we was kind of our own human pincushion. We've got loads of dots all on my leg where we was trialing different pigments. And we kind of came up with it. We found a pigment that we liked. And then it was a case of rebranding and actually making that pigment ours by taking it off to a laboratory and getting a vegan pigment made with similar components and a lot more added in.
Yeah, lovely. And do you want to just give the pigment a little bit of a plug? Where can they go? Where can other artists go to buy that, or where can clients go to ask their practitioner to use the Alivio pigment on themselves?
Well, yeah, Alivio Pigment's available to clinics all around the world now, and we're very proud of that. And it's you can buy it either directly from Bramble Clinic, or you can buy it from Team Micro, where Diamond Porter sells another host of top range pigments as well. And so you can find Alivio there as well. And so yeah, we're very proud of it. I mean, we know it's a good seller. And I think it helps. It's a vegan, and Alivio as well. What the clinics have is a certificate, and we know that when we're doing consultations, and rightly so, clients will ask what's in the pigment. And we never believed in these stories of people or clinics saying, "Oh, we can't tell you, and it's a trade secret, and it's organic. That's all you need." Well, we always felt, well, it's going in your head. You have every right to know what's going in your body. So we got a component certificate done by the manufacturers. So anytime people buy Alivio pigment, there is the components list. So for religious reasons or whatever other reason, they can research the pigment to know that it's all body friendly. There's no iron oxide in it, or other nasties that you hear about with some tattoos that might turn it blue or green. That won't happen with Alivio.
Yeah, lovely. And let's just go back to yourself now as well. So your original procedure was in 2010. Over the years, have you had touch-up sessions? Yeah. When did they happen? And then let's have a chat about your wanting to redesign the hairline.
Okay. Yeah, I think my first couple of treatments, four treatments, were in 2010. I had another touch-up then in about 2013, and I was fine really then. But when we opened Bramble Clinic, we was inventing the 3D technique. We was doing these pointillism on paper, trying to get the idea. But as anything that me and Paul do when it comes to trial anything, I'm always the guinea pig. So to get the 3D effect, Paul needed me to step up up. So Mullins here said, okay, I'll have the 3D. So I had another touch-up in 2015. And that has been, I mean, it took him 2 sessions to do it, to get the 3D, if I'm being honest. But I haven't had any touch-ups since then. So, for 5 years now, I've been good. I hope it looks okay. I don't feel as though, personally anyway, I've got the need to have another touch-up in the foreseeable future anyway.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, reassuring for someone who's got scalp scars and some burned skin, scar skin there. It's reassuring to know that you yourself had this treatment so long ago and it's still holding really nicely.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of your own biology, but also you do have to look after the pigment, and we've been on top of your head, and that's just, as we know, it's just being a bit sensible in the sun, applying some factor 30 or 50 as it is in my case, wearing a cap occasionally, in the sun as well. And I just moisturize every day, but that isn't odd to me now. It's just part of my daily grooming pattern. I shave my hair every day, but then I'll just put some moisturizer on my scalp, and that's all I do.
Yeah, brilliant. And as an artist, so obviously you're very hands-on in the business, either doing treatments or training. So let's just have a quick chat about the training side that you offer there at Brownwood.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the training we do is, we do different levels of training. There's a course that we do, for beginners, and on that course, I do the head training. Paul carries on doing the treatments in the clinic, but we only allow for 6 people, students, let's call them that, to come in, and that gives me enough chance and enough capacity to deal with really 6 over 6 is really pushing it. But yeah, we do at the moment. We've been lucky that we've been training for over, really, I think for 3 years. We didn't start to train when we opened up Bramble Clinic because we didn't want to do it. We trained people at his hair clinic, and it wasn't a path that we wanted to go down at the time, but we was getting inquiries. People were hearing we were back in the industry, and they were saying, will you train me, or can you help me with a masterclass? And we did say no to begin with, but the response back, and rightfully so, was, okay, well, that's fine, but if you're not going to train me, I'll go somewhere else and get trained. We just felt, well, look, they're going to go and get trained anyway. And we want this industry to move forward and be done right. And we just felt, with our knowledge, well, let's just train people and train them properly. So if they are going to go out into this wonderful industry that we're all involved in, and they've got a good knowledge of how to do the density, how to build it up. So that's why we started to do the training again, and it's really gathered momentum. And we hold training sessions probably once a month now for a maximum of 6 people, and occasionally, there may be 1 or 2 master classes in there from experienced practitioners who just want to just have an idea of what they can improve on, and that's more of a bespoke course that we do, and that normally lasts about 1 to 2 days training as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And so how do you feel clients can benefit from an artist that does invest in themselves and do go on to do more than one training? How do you feel clients benefit from a practitioner who does go and do lots of trainings?
Sorry, just say it again, Karen. It's just broke up.
Yeah, sorry. I'll ask that one again. How do you feel a client can benefit from a practitioner who goes and does multiple trainings with lots of different artists?
Okay. I think it's very beneficial because that individual practitioner, he's putting himself out there to go and be trained, perhaps in Europe, in America, in Australia, and it shows a huge passion, this desire to always want to be better. And I love people like that. I say, even with the 10 years experience that I've got, you never stop learning. You're only as good as your last treatment. So you should always have that passion So people who go on multiple training courses, that isn't to say that they're not competent. They are. Of course, they're competent. But they just want to get maybe different ideas, say from myself and Paul, maybe from yourself. They'll go over and see Matt or John in America. Mm-hmm. So great. I think it's fantastic that we have practitioners out there who are still willing to do that. We benefit, obviously, all our clients because they will get outstanding treatments.
Yeah. All right. And we've got, I just want to ask if you can tell us a story of one really memorable client that you've worked on. So maybe someone had a special story, something that really has stayed with you. Could you tell us a story about one of your favourite transformations?
I could tell you a story about a client, but it's probably a bit X-rated, a request, but I think we better leave that one. Probably one of my favourite stories is a guy who, he was similar to me, a guy called Mr. Malik, who'd had a childhood burn as well. He was 2 years old, and his accident was actually worse than mine because it was boiling hot milk, and it had gone over his head, but it had also gone down his face as well. And he'd lived with this, all through his childhood. He was 40 years old when he came to see us at Bramble Clinic. He was actually a reference from Dawn Forshaw at Finishing Touches and her contacts within the Katie Piper Foundation. Mm-hmm. So I was asked to do that treatment, and yeah, of course, it struck a real chord with me because I could see myself, in this guy. So helping Mr. Malik was massive. It was a big thing for me, and again to see that that liberation come with him, over him within the 4 sessions. Yeah, it took 4 sessions for me to do it. Got very tight skin like myself, so different pressure application had to be done, very light. He was very nervous to begin with, found it painful, and I think that was just through the burn. Mm-hmm. But yeah, over four sessions, which I think it took me about 6 weeks. So I wanted to be careful with him, to see the transformation and see his appearance. Yeah, that was very, very rewarding.
Yeah, excellent. And then just for your day-to-day, what is the favourite part of the scalp micropigmentation process that you love the most? Like the beginning, perhaps the design side, or do you like the completed? What's your favourite part of the transformation process?
They're all enjoyments, but I think it's got to be the final session, because as with Mr. Malik, you see a transformation in appearance, but also a transformation in a client's personality. From that opening introduction, that first session, nervous, is it going to be okay? And you're talking to them and explaining what's going to happen, and then to see over a 3 to 4 week period, and then seeing the personalities. So I think definitely the final session, just to see the joy on a client's face. Yeah. It's very rewarding, and let's not forget as well that we're not just changing that person's life, we're changing his family's life as well, because that guy now has who's married, his wife has finally got her husband back, or maybe the parents have got the son back because he's been depressed and very within himself. So it's the client we're changing, but there's another a barrier of people around them whose lives are changing for the better as well, because they're seeing the son, the father, their uncle, whatever. He's back and he's got a smile on his face.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome. All right. Well, you do have an amazing story, so thank you so much for sharing part of that with us today. It is so amazing that you've actually popped it all into a book. So do you want to share your book with us and give that a plug?
Okay. Yeah, where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, this is the book. that's a picture of my good self. On the front, when I was 2 years old, it's titled "It's Only Hair," and the reason it was titled was that because when my mum went to see one of the nurses at the time to see what could happen, how they could help me, the nurse's response back was, "Well, what's the big deal? It's only hair." And my mum says, "Well, it's quite a big deal to someone who's 2 years old and has got no hair." So that was always stuck with me, and yeah, that's a picture of me, as I say, and then with the bandages and the burn on my head and on my hands as well. So yeah, that's the book. Very proud of it. It took a long time to do. So if you're ever thinking, anyone out there thinking of writing a book, it'll probably take you, unless you're better than me, probably take you about 2 years to do. But yeah, very rewarding that I've done it, and the reason why I've done this book was for myself, final liberation within, that I could talk about everything that had happened to me. But obviously it was to help clients who may be sitting at home thinking that no one understands what they've been through. Nobody understands the depression that they go through, maybe the lengths that they go to disguise the hair loss. If they read my book, read my story, there might be something that they can identify with, and it is to say, look, you're not alone. There are loads of people, even though you probably think there isn't, who are going through the same kind of mental and physical problems that you're going through. But there is a solution out there, and it is what we all think is our wonderful industry, scalp micropigmentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Simon.
Pleasure.
Thanks for sharing your experience with us, and I'm sure someone out there who's watching this will hopefully gain some insight into who you are, what you've been through, and thank you for being on the 5-minute fast facts on scalp micropigmentation, which has gone a lot longer than 5 minutes, but that's okay. So thanks so much.
And thank you for having me on.
And if you've got any questions or comments, we want to hear from you. So as always, don't be shy, give us a call or an email or pop something in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the latest content as we release it. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin.